Thanks for tuning in to the Prime Bookseller Podcast, the bi-weekly podcast discussing all things Amazon bookselling.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the first episode of Prime Bookselling. I'm Eric Walterkins, and this first episode is just going to be a short introduction to who I am and what I'm hoping to accomplish with this podcast. So, as you may have seen in the description of Prime Bookselling is going to be all about an Amazon bookselling business. I myself have been running an Amazon bookselling business for about 15 years, and quite frankly, when I look around at the content that's put out there for Amazon booksellers today, I don't feel like it's I'm not one to speak ill will of anybody, but I do feel like there's a whole lot of gaps missing in what people are putting out there. Most of the content that is put out there is more or less attempting to be eye-grabbing and, get you interested in the concept of selling books on Amazon. None of it seems to really focus on, here's a step-by-step guide to give you a strong understanding of this business and how to succeed in this business. And that's what we're going to try to accomplish with this podcast. So, if you're an existing Amazon bookseller, I will forewarn you that the first few episodes of this podcast are going to be very, very basic. We're going to cover basic concepts of Amazon with the intent of anybody that is just looking at starting one of these businesses. These are the concepts you need to know. Now, that said, for you that are already selling on Amazon, I do not feel like it is bad for you to listen to those episodes, because while they are very basic concepts, I am going to start with the very, very basic overall view of that concept, but then I'm going to go deep down into details with that concept. So you may learn something you didn't even realize or had never really thought of with that concept. So it's because these podcasts are going to be very short. I'm trying to keep these to 10 to 15 minutes twice a month. They're worth the listen just to see if you pick anything up you may have not realized or never really thought about before. To give a little breakdown of my business is, like I said, I have been selling on Amazon for about 15 years. I have dabbled in different aspects of selling on Amazon. Many people are probably well aware of the more attractive business models that are out there, the private labels of the world, the wholesale, the RA, OA, things that everybody is talking about. Most people will tell you to skip right past books and jump right into those kinds of business models. I have played with all of them, and the best I can say is that every time I try something new, I just always come back to books. They're simple, they work, they're a great place to get started. And despite I would argue to the teeth with anybody that says that starting with books on Amazon isn't the best way to start, because it teaches you all the critical lessons you need to know about selling on Amazon, as well as it's low cost. When you're looking at selling an RA product or an OA product or a wholesale product, those products average around $15 a piece, and you might make $5-6 profit on it. With books, you can sell a book. You can buy a book today for $3, and you might be able to sell that book anywhere from $15 up to $35. And beyond, don't get me wrong, the beyond is not very common, but it does happen. So there's just a whole bunch of margin. So you can make a lot of mistakes while you're doing these types of books, or while you're doing this business, and you have a whole bunch of margin to make up for those mistakes. So for any of you that are out there that have listened to maybe other YouTubers or anything else about Amazon bookselling you might find out there on the internet, I just want to forewarn you that I have a different, I view my business model as, while it's based basically on what everybody else is doing, it's very different from what everybody else is doing. So you're going to hear things on this podcast. I don't typically agree with the normal stance people take on how to do books. An average bookseller is going to tell you that you start with books, and then once you get too big for books, because at a certain point in time, going into a thrift store and buying books is just unfeasible, and there isn't a real good way to scale books beyond that. I completely disagree with that. I believe that the only method that is currently taught out there to scale books beyond going into thrift stores and buying books is to start buying Gaylords from thrift stores and things like that, which is just a huge undertaking. And I believe that probably you take everybody that gets into book selling because they're interested, there's probably literally a 2% ratio of people that are interested in getting a 50,000 square foot warehouse and to buy Gaylords and start processing them through and build a business that way. So my model's very different. We work with suppliers and we apply the same concepts that most people are talking about on selling books, but we simply get a list from these suppliers of used books and we run that through a software that will come back with the data you need to make a logical buying decision, and we just then filter down that data and figure out which books we want to buy. So if you want to compare it to, it's basically when you hear somebody talking about selling books or going into a thrift store and buying books, our model is the same, except we're doing it off in an Excel spreadsheet and we're processing it through a computer software instead of through your phone and just buying what it tells us to buy. So we're going to talk a lot about that as well. As a business, I run a company called Kingsridge Media, and within Kingsridge Media, we actually have started up a program that allows other booksellers to tap into these suppliers that we've built, because some of these suppliers are the largest used booksellers in the United States, and actually one in the UK as well. And because of that, we have an abundance of inventory that we could never possibly process through on our own. And so we have set up programs that allow you to tap into those suppliers and get books for yourself for your own store. So you will learn about that through the period of this podcast. And as well as a couple other services that we're looking at. We haven't, as of date, we have not launched these services, but we are looking at a program that will allow you to get customer support via our team. So basically, you have a web form you can go to, you can submit a question about your Amazon business, and our team will look at that question, will draft a response for you, and get your question answered. If the question is not properly answered or you're not comfortable with the answer, you do have the option to get on one-on-one Zoom calls with us. We're also looking at setting up bi-weekly Q&A sessions on Zoom that anybody that's a subscriber to this service can just jump onto a Zoom call, and our team will be on the Zoom call answering any questions for you. And the reason why we're doing that is just because we want to plug this hole for people that are starting in this business, where I hear from a lot of newer sellers that go on to, the number one place to get answers to your questions right now is going to be via a Facebook group and stuff like that. And 90% of the people that will answer on Facebook are going to give you snotty comments that you should be watching more YouTube videos and not asking dumb questions. And we don't feel like when you're starting something out new and you're overwhelmed to buy that thing, that's the kind of response you need. That's just only going to slow down your learning process. And maybe the question you ask, you can get an answer from YouTube, but a much more responsible answer to give that person is to say, hey, this video on YouTube will tell you exactly the information you're looking for. Just watch it and you'll have your answer. If there's any other questions, let us know. And that's what we're going to strive to do with this service. So you don't have to go to a Facebook group, put it out on the public for everybody to see, to judge you. The best part is sometimes you post a question on a Facebook group and they don't even give you an answer. Everybody just ignores the question. So this is a simple service that will kind of give you a better experience with getting help as you go through building your business. So right now, what I'm looking at, I'm going to kind of wrap this episode up, but the first thing that we're going to talk about on the next episode is going to be, we're going to go into the ins and outs of the FBA program. I would think most people listening to this podcast would be very familiar with what the FBA program is, but we're going to talk about it in a little detail. For those of you that don't know what it is, we're going to cover what exactly it is, and we're going to talk about why you should use it and if there are reasons why you shouldn't use it. I'll give you a little showstopper here and say that there is not a reason that you shouldn't use it, but you should understand the downfalls to it, because it is not a perfect program. And in many ways, especially nowadays, Amazon is putting all their focus on this FBA program, and it is strangling some sellers' growth in their business because they rely on this program, and Amazon is saying, well, you can't sell products, or you can only send in so many products a month and things like that. And it's important to understand that, because in my opinion, it's important for you, as if you are focused on and want to be a bookseller, you need to look at and I shouldn't say if you just want to do it as a real side hobby, FBA is probably the way to go. But if you do want to scale it into a real business, at some point in time, there is going to probably be a point where you're going to want to look at stretching your business into other programs so that you can list as much product as you want. So we'll go into more detail on that on the next podcast. I want to thank everybody for tuning into this first podcast episode, and just keep subscribed. 2 weeks, we'll be back with the FBA episode, and we've got a whole bunch more content coming down the path for that after that as well. I've got a whole list of questions that have been asked to me over the years that we're going to jump into some of those questions, give detailed answers on them. We're going to cover all sorts of topics beyond just the very basics of Amazon. We're going to talk about all the tools, everything that you need to start your business. So hang tight, stay subscribed, and we'll have that information coming out over the coming months. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Prime Bookseller Podcast. Join us for the next episode as we discuss all things Amazon bookselling.